you meet any listeners of ours down in the Dominican Republic?
I heard we have a huge following down there.
What's Spanish for no? No.
Other C.
Yemi Baki Yoko Oyo Samina Mina Edward Mende Samina Mina Sam Sadakte. He comes from Senegal.
And I think going out and get Saul was the top transfer of the market for Chelsea.
Chesney could have been in the shower smoking a cigarette like he was at Arsenal, and we still would not have scored.
My rants have been fueled by Scotch. Don't get it twisted.
Big Rom. Man, fuck you.
In Roman we trust, right?
You and me are going to have a battle royale about Jorginho and diving.
The flag stays down!
Welcome to the Flag Stays Down podcast. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tonight, you got me here, Andy. You can find me on Twitter at Comiskey North. We've also got a guy who's got better hair than Mykhailo Mudryk. And that's Matt at Matus Lee. And we've also got a guy who puts in a solid performance every week, just like our boy Thiago Silva. And that's Parker at DJ Parkour. Parker, how you doing?
Well, buddy, I ain't gonna lie. Life's pretty good and easy right now. As you guys know, I'm on a little vacay, so I got down to the Dominican a couple days ago and been just relaxing and chilling out. So life's pretty good. Apologies in advance to anyone who hears this, and the audio might be a touch shitty because I'm on their lovely free Wi-Fi here. So if it cuts in and out, it's not my fault. I did my best, but it's been great, man. It's been great to just kind of take a few days off, and got a few more coming. So able to watch the game today, and hey, boys got to win. So life is definitely looking up. So I can't really complain. Matthew, how about you, man? How you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Shout out. I think this is our first international episode. So I think we can chalk that one up in the history books for the Flag Down pod. But yeah, doing good. A little tired. Been a very eventful weekend. Working on the basement, putting in a solid Thiago Silva, aka Parker Gross type shift. Yeah, so was working on that. Got a lot of stuff done. Starting to clear out my current office for the nursery and moving a lot of stuff around, and just been busy all weekend. Got to spend some time with my niece. So first time really kind of just hanging out with her and everything like that. She peed on my sweatshirt. So that was, welcome to the fam. Gotta love that. But no, all is good. Couldn't ask for a much better weekend. Got a lot done. And as you said, Parks, boys got a dub. So we're looking good. Collins, I see you're all decked out in your KU stuff. What do you got for me on that?
Oh, I don't know. I just wore the shirt and I'm like, ooh, I should wear my hat too. Since we're not live on Twitch, I don't have to wear my Chelsea stuff today.
You doing good though?
Oh yeah. Parker, I think I should update yours to man who's got a better connection with his team than Mason Mount.
Yeah.
No, but I'm good. It was got out to the pub this morning, watched the game with Milwaukee Blues, and oh man, it's been so long since we've seen a Chelsea win, and it was just so nice to go the rest of the day not having to stew about what happened. And you add that to the fact that Arsenal is pissed. Every single Arsenal fan is pissed at Chelsea right now, and you have the world hating on Chelsea. Oh, the good old days are back. So yeah, very, very successful weekend. All right, well, boys, we're on episode number 23. It's not Michael Jordan, but we got some interesting names in here. So let's find a player that we're going to toast to here before we hop into today's proceedings. So obviously we've got the current holder and Conor Gallagher. Last year we had Kennedy, and before that we had Billy G. Michy Batshuayi wore it for 4 years. Juan Cuadrado and Daniel Sturridge. I feel like this is you could build a team for you two around a lot of these players. So who are we picking?
Go ahead, Matt.
So many of these pull on my heartstrings. That's the problem I have. Obviously I have a Michy jersey. I have a Billy G jersey. I do enjoy me some Conor Gallagher. I got to go with my first love. It's got to be Michy for me. The Batman himself. I was a big fan of him when we had him. I know he didn't play a whole lot, but crucial moments. He had the game-winning goal to seal the Premier League title, I believe 2016. Yeah, like somewhere in there. The one with Conte. But yeah, I got to go with Michy.
See, this one, it feels tough for me, but it's definitely not. I think only one player has earned it for me, which is Daniel Sturridge. He was a big part of the team that I started watching with Chelsea, and he wore it for a while, and was a great member of our attack. And as much as I loved Kennedy and wanted him to succeed so badly at Chelsea, just never really did enough in a Chelsea uniform. And I think Connor's got every ability to sort of overtake that in the future, but just hasn't earned it yet. So for me, it's Sturridge.
And I'm going to go off the board here. I know that I create the board, but I'm going to go off the board just because I figured this guy wouldn't get any votes from you two. Carlo Cudicini, backup keeper and starter for a couple of years, for nearly a decade at Chelsea. At one point was our longest tenured player. Played at the club from 99 to 09. Yeah, a sneaky good career for him at Chelsea. Champions League, he only featured 17 times in that period, but 12 clean sheets. Gave up less goals than games played in Chelsea. 184 goals and 216 appearances. Overall, being Petr Cech's backup, a very, very successful career for Carlo Cudicini. So I'm okay with a split vote today. You guys good with that?
Yeah,
works for me.
All right. Well, let's cheers to the Michael Jordans of Chelsea.
Cheers, boys.
Matt, what are you sipping on?
Four Roses bourbon.
Classic.
It's been a long day, long weekend, so much needed. A bush latte wouldn't cut it today.
Parker, I'm assuming something exotic on your end.
Presidente beer.
Oh, dude, it's so good.
which comes free in the hotel and is stocked in the mini bar daily. So today has been like champagne and Presidente kind of day. It's been great.
Yeah, I was a big fan. I was surprised at how good it was for being like their free beer. I think it's actually pretty good for like your run of the mill type beer. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I would drink it over Budweiser all day.
Well, yeah, I mean that's not saying much, but yes, completely agree.
For half of America, it says something. Yeah, I mean it's one of the most popular beers in the U.S., man.
Yeah.
We're gonna name this segment "Shitting on Budweiser."
Yep.
.org.
.edu.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, this week, kind of a hectic.
Collins, what do you have? Sorry, we didn't check with you.
Oh yeah, I got Knob Creek straight rye.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was a gift from my sister for my birthday, and I'm starting to run low on my bar cart, so that's what I'm working on today.
Is that a pint glass I'm seeing?
Yeah, I got a little Sprite in there.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, it couldn't have been that bad of a day and going a pint glass of whiskey.
Tomorrow's a federal holiday. It's all good.
Can confirm.
All right, boys. Well, this week was kind of a hectic one. Chelsea lost to Fulham for the first time since 2006.
Ball's given it away. De Cordova reads ball in. Chalopar got the touch. Only away as far as Willian. Looking for the angle. Gets it deflected. It's in. And it is the former Chelsea man who doesn't celebrate the goal that gives Fulham the lead against the Blues. Having come close just a couple of minutes ago, this time Fulham do have the lead. And is it going to get even worse for Graham Potter? In from Mount, good effort. And it's in, surely is it over the line? Yes, Chelsea level. Less than 2 minutes gone in the second half. And just what the doctor ordered for Graham Potter. Koulibaly on hand after Mount's quick thinking caught Fulham out. And it's all square at Craven Cottage. Tete. Useful from Pereira. Kepa couldn't get there. And there's the goal for Carlos Vinicius. His first for Fulham, which might give them victory in the West London derby. What a moment for him and for the home fans.
We poached a €100 million transfer from Arsenal within a matter of hours. And finally, we picked up 3 points finally today against Palace with a 1-0 win.
Gallagher, Ziyech, 2v1 on that side. Ziyech swings it in, Havertz is there! Fine header, and Chelsea take the lead. Oh, I think Palace switched off a bit. Chelsea 2v1 on that far side. And it was a millimetre perfect cross for the head of Kai Havertz, who gets his 6th of the season.
But I want to start with the transfer. I want to start with Mykhailo Mudryk coming over from Shaktahr Donetsk. It all just happened so quickly on Saturday. And, as I'm sure you guys saw on your phones when I was blowing you up, things moved very, very quickly. And so the quick story with that is Arsenal have been in on him for months. The original bids put in August were from Brentford and Everton in the realms of about $30 million. Shakhtar said, no, we think he's worth 100. So Arsenal have been working on it. Arsenal sporting director Edu had been in Turkey, where Shakhtar has been training for 13 days, trying to negotiate a lower price. What does Todd Bowley do? Sends in his co-owner, Begdad Iqbali, flies to Turkey, gets the deal done within 3 hours, flies back on his private jet with Mudryk on board. Mudryk takes his physical this morning, is announced at halftime as a Chelsea player. Whew, whirlwind. So I know that, coming out of the Ukrainian league, may not be well known by all here, but I'm curious to get your guys' initial reaction to Mudryk.
I got a couple just like highlights about all of what you just kind of said. The first being, I love that he was debuted at the game today. I just love that he came out at halftime, greeted the fans. You got kind of that ovation there. I think it's kind of an old school, kind of classy approach to doing it, and was a big fan of that. The fact that we got to take something from Arsenal that they wanted just warms my heart. And Collins, you mentioned kind of being the villain a little bit, and I love being the villain. I love that people hate us again, and it causes that fear. It causes people to hate us. It causes people to kind of go in at us harder, and it brings the best out of us. So I love that. And then the fact that we signed him on like a 7.5-year deal.
8.5.
8.5-year deal. Excuse me. Man, it's just cementing what we're trying to do. It's cementing the fact that we're trying to go young. We're trying to get people that, we can sign to long-term deals and just kind of build around a core of guys that want to be playing for Chelsea for long terms. So those all really stuck out to me as all really positives. Can't really comment on his play. Haven't really seen much of it yet, but he's young, he's exciting, he's fast as hell. I saw some of his like speed metrics that he's posted, and I can't remember if it was last year's Champions League or if it was the World Cup or whatnot, but it was he registered one of the quickest or the highest top speeds in the tournament, and it's someone who can be pretty dangerous for Chelsea going forward.
So for me, two things. I love the fact that we have a Matt Damon lookalike from Good Will Hunting on the team. Big fan. Second of all, if you are going to get a player from the Ukrainian league, you want it to be from Shaktahr Donetsk, right? That's where you want it from. They're in the Champions League every single year, and they've always had a good crop of players come through, and obviously bigger teams have poached them and everything like that. If I remember correctly, wasn't Willian from Shakhtar? There's countless others, but they put together a pretty good crop of players that usually get poached. But to get one of them, and Collins, from everything that I'm hearing from you, your enthusiasm about getting him, you have to love it. Sorry, one other thing is shout out to Todd Bowley and basically his fuck you money. I feel like that's what he came to the table with. Trying to pick him out. He's just yeah, Arsenal's fucking around. Here you go. And just gave the middle finger. I could see him just dropping a duffel bag of cash, giving the middle finger, and then just walking out and just being all right, deal's done. I love it. Keep it coming.
Yeah, and Parker, to touch on your point, it was this year's Champions League. He registered a top speed of 36.6 kilometers an hour or miles per hour. It must have been kilometers. No way that was miles. But yeah, super speedy. And yeah, Matt, the fuck you to the league leaders. We are in 10th, and we convinced Mudryk to join us. And the difference in the club's valuations was about $10 million. Arsenal was coming in at a bid of about 90 million euros. We're paying, after all the incentives, about 100 million. I am very excited for him. I've watched a couple of his Champions League matches against Madrid, against Celtic. What he reminds me of, and it's not a direct comp, but it's very similar, and it's a young Eden Hazard. It's 21-year-old Eden Hazard. He's still raw, still a little raw, but he's got the speed, not afraid to dribble. He loves to look for goal. He's not a pass first winger, I would say. I'd say he's more of a wide striker to kind of fit him into a position. And we don't have that speed. That's something that I noticed today that we are missing a lot of. You play a ball into space, behind the opponent's back four, and we don't have anybody who can go catch up to it. Carney couldn't do it today. Ziyech, we know, can't do it. Aubameyang's not going to do it. Mudryk will do it, 100%. He'll catch up to the ball every single time. And to have him for 8.5 years until he's 30. Perfect. I don't know. I guess the main thing that I love about the 8.5 year is that it will shut up all of the people complaining about FFP, about, oh, how can Chelsea be splashing all this cash? All that. I mean, really, it won't shut them up. They'll keep complaining. But this $100 million fee is going to be spread out over the next 8.5 years. The cap hit, if you want to call it that, is going to be no more than $33 million because it's on a rolling 3-year basis. And so, yeah, Todd Bowley, splash that fuck you money. I love the fact that he has brought over from baseball these long-term contracts that I don't know why people weren't doing before in this sport in Europe, because it really seems to be a cheat code for financial fair play.
Yeah, it does. And so, you bring that up. Obviously, I'm a big fan. I've brought it up many times of the Last Dance documentary and everything like that. But it just brings me back to like Jerry Reinsdorf, I think he was the president. But he was just like, you come to me for a long-term deal, don't come back to me. Like, that's what you agreed to. We're not going to renegotiate. That's just what it's going to be. If we're buying him for 108 mil and he ends up being worth 300 mil after his contract's up, it's a steal, right? In the grand scheme of things, it's a steal. I know contracts don't work the same way in soccer as they do in American pro sports, but either way, like, that is a steal. I find it funny that, we're coming out with all these long contracts, baseball-like contracts. And yet in FIFA, you can only go 5 year. Like, the cap on it was always 5 year. I'm like, no, I want to sign him for like 7 or 8. Well, guess what? That's what Todd Bowley's doing, and I like it. He's signing good quality youth players that want to be at the club, and they're essentially committing their future to the club, which I thoroughly enjoy. That's, Collins, what you've touched on many a time, is I want somebody that's going to be committed to the club. Well, signing a contract of that length, you are committed to the club. So I'm very excited to see how the rest of the contract negotiations go, right? We haven't really heard anything about Nkunku and what his deal is going to be or anything like that, but everything seems like youth players, first team youth players, and lengthy contracts. So I'm excited about that.
The only thing I'll say to kind of put the bow on it is this is the process, right? This is the process that we've all been talking about, that Bowley's tried to implement, that Graham Potter is going to try to execute. It's going to be long-term looking. It's going to be long-term deals. It's going to be a lot of youth. It's going to be raw at times. It's going to be janky at times. It's not going to be the prettiest of all things. It's going to be makeshift, but it's building for the future. I think the goal is obviously to not get relegated this year, but the goal isn't for this year. It might not even be for next year, but it's years 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And can we have a dominant team that can compete for the league in those years? And it's really hard to see the forest from the trees as Chelsea fans, because we're used to looking for greatness now, and we're not used to being patient. But I think that's the process that's been sort of sold to us, and that we need to kind of focus on. And we see guys like Lewis Hall and Carney Chukwuemeka getting great minutes past couple of weeks, and we're going to see them improve. And I mean, these guys are going to be the backbone of our team in the next couple of years, and we can fit people in then as we go. But it's going to be exciting. I'm really, really looking forward to what we could look like in a couple of years' time.
I think the best comparison I saw today was to Real Madrid, because Madrid had Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, Karim Benzema, Ronaldo, Iker Casillas, Sergio Ramos. All these, they had a core, but it was all very, very much aging. Like, there was going to need to be a transition. And what did they do? Went out and brought in Vinicius, Camavinga, Tuchemi. Like, they brought in a core for the next decade. And I think that's what Todd Bowley is aiming at doing here, especially on an 8.5 year deal. Talk about a decade. But it's nice to see forward planning. And I was talking with our voice and former guest on this show, Scott, with the MKE Blues. And he said, in a vacuum, this transfer policy doesn't really make sense. Why are we going after Mudryk? We have 1 million attackers. We need a midfielder. We need a right back. Like, what are we doing? He goes, but then you kind of zoom out and you see what the transfer plan is. Like, it's not complete yet, but it's, you buy as many lottery tickets as you can, and you buy the best young players that you can, so that you're not spending triple this amount in 5 years' time. And I thought that's a great plan. I'm in on that plan. Works for me.
It's the FIFA mentality, right? You buy a new version of FIFA, you look for the best young players, and then you try to scoop them up as quick as you can, and while their value is still somewhat reasonable. And then eventually you end up flipping them for 3 or 4 times what you bought them for. It's essentially that mentality.
And apparently, just to close out the transfer topic here, according to reliable sources, whether it be Matt Law, Simon Johnson, Fabrizio Romano, etc., Chelsea are going to be making a bid within the next 48 hours from Moises Caicedo, who is a central mid from Brighton and plays for Ecuador. The Enzo deal is not necessarily dead. Chelsea may be going back for Enzo before the end of the month. And we're still actively looking for a right back. So, boys, this may be another $300 million transfer window. Fuck you, money.
Jesus Christ.
All right. Well, with Mudryk coming in and with him being told, like, hey, you're basically going to be a starter from day one. That was part of his agreement. We do have quite a bit of quite a backlog at attacker. I'm pulling up our roster here at the moment, but I figure we can kind of make kind of a hierarchy, not necessarily a buy, sell, loan, or keep, sell, loan kind of thing, but more of a who deserves the most playing time, who deserves the least amount of playing time. So here is your list of eligible players. Mason Mount, Carney Chukwuemeka, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Christian Pulisic, João Felix, Mykhailo Mudryk, Raheem Sterling, Armando Broyo, we're going to leave off because he's out for the season, Hakim Ziyech, David Datro Fofana, and Kai Havertz. Who would you put last on that list?
Depends on form. Right now, I would put João Felix at the bottom because he's suspended for the next 2 games after today, and we're only going to have him for 6 months. But from everything that I heard, he did have a very positive performance up until that point. If we're looking at attackers who I think would be last, probably Aubameyang. I think he's probably last, although I will say with the caveat that I did think that he had a good performance today. Just being out there for the 20-ish minutes that he was out there, I thought that he played well. He had a few shots on goal. He looked hungry. He looked ambitious, going for balls, making runs. So I liked what I saw out of him. But overall, I think he is the least important person of all of our attackers.
And but before I get your answer, Parker, because I know you were critical of Aubameyang at the start of the year. What did you make of his performance today?
I don't know. I'm guessing I'm biased, and my bias shows when I watch him play because I didn't think he had a great day. I don't really like what he brings to the team, and I just don't think I saw some hunger out of him. Matt, to your point, I saw him be like more active than he is, but to me, it's all about goals at that position and chances, and he just doesn't bring enough to the table for me to really sort of warrant it. But he's actually my least. I would put Fofana as the least amount of playing time, just because Fofana is just so unproven at this stage. So I would put Pierre kind of second if we're going least important to most.
And I would mirror the sentiment that you guys have of Aubameyang kind of last on that list. There's already rumors of he wants to go back to Barcelona in this transfer window, which is the only club he can go back to, or he can transfer to based on FIFA regulation. But Barcelona need to sign him on a free and at discounted wages. So we know that that's not going to happen. But yeah, I would put him last. I don't think he, at his age, has the makeup for the Premier League anymore. He doesn't have the speed that he used to have. His physicality at times is lacking. So yeah, I'd put him last. But to turn this more on a positive note here, we typically play with a front three, regardless of formation. With all of these attackers, what is your preferred front three for the rest of the season?
Oh boy. For the rest of the season.
I've got an answer for you, but just based on consistency and like a front three that I could trust for the rest of the season, it would be Mudryk on the left. I would put Kai up front, and I would put Felix on the right.
I like that three. I was going to go with the same three. My only thing is I would put Kai on the left, Mudryk on the right, and then Kai up top.
Wait, you said Kai twice.
Yeah, say that again.
Mudryk on the right, Felix on the left, and Kai up top. Or no, sorry. I can't even figure this out. It's been a long weekend. Mudryk on the right, João Felix on the left, and then Kai up top.
Yeah, I think let's sweep it there, boys. Because yeah, I'm the same way. For me, it's Mudryk on the left, João on the right, and Kai Havertz up the middle. I have seen that Chelsea believe that they can sign João Felix on a permanent, even though there's no option in this loan. If he can play how he did the first 58 minutes against Fulham before his red card, I'm all for them signing him on a permanent basis. I think he would be very solid on that left-hand side. I will say that I still have faith in Raheem Sterling to turn it around with better options in this team, better attackers on this team. But I also, Hakim Ziyech has been good as of late. He's been a little swaggy. If he can show that more consistently over the next couple matches, I'd consider him as maybe a potential top three forward in this team.
I totally agree with that, Collins. I would put him in there along with Christian, because Christian's shown flashes of brilliance, especially as of late, coming off of World Cup form. But like those guys are kind of rumored out the door, so it's hard for me to like get behind them, because I feel like they're going to be cameos at best and feature in less important matches, just as rotational players as we start to build the new face at Chelsea.
And with Mudryk coming in and João Felix coming in last week, does this hurt the development of someone like Carney Chukwuemeka?
I don't think so. Because you look at, obviously we know that Kova's going to do Kova things, right? And we know Jorginho is half of what he used to be, which is suspect at best. I know I saw that RLC was on the bench today, so I was happy to see that. He's obviously recovering, and he'll definitely fill in there. But I think with Dennis, and Dennis is on a loan, or is it a loan option to buy? It's option to buy, right?
Yes, it is.
I think that we end up buying him. Obviously, you have Connor as well. I could see some of these players going out on loan. In the summer, I could see somebody like Carney going on loan, just to get more playing time. I don't know where he fits in Potter's plan right now. Obviously, he's doing great things. So is Dennis. Conte is, again, still how many matches you're going to get out of him. So right there, you're looking at 3 midfielders, then possibly 4 when you talk about rotation and schedule and everything like that. I think that there's a place for him. It's just a matter of how often are they going to play, and is it best suited that they go get more consistent minutes somewhere else? We've seen, obviously, this year, all the injuries that take place, and people have to come in and fill that gap. So that's also something to take into consideration. But I don't know if it's necessarily going to hinder anybody like a Carney or a Connor, especially if they're playing first team minutes and everything like that, and they're training with the first team. There's definitely going to be spots for them to play. And depending on the game, maybe we go 3 in the midfield or something like that, or somebody hopefully takes over for Mason Mount. And we go from there. So I think that I think it's definitely very open as far as the opportunities for these young players, specifically in the midfield, to make their impact and kind of state their claim as, it should be me out there. I should be on the team sheet, not somebody else.
I don't have much to add, Collins. I completely agree with Matt's point. I think I think the midfield is wide open for competition, and Carney's development isn't going to be hindered by Mudryk signing. I think he's going to have just as much of a chance because we haven't signed that solid midfielder to take his minutes away from him as of yet.
Yeah, and I think today was the first time we kind of saw Carney not exposed, but it wasn't his greatest game. He was kind of bouncing off or being bounced by Palace defenders. Found it hard to get into open spaces, but when he did, he looked real good. So hopefully, Graham Potter sticks with this plan of, you want to play my style, go out there and play. So hopefully, yeah, Carney gets his playing time, but if he doesn't, he's still training with now some of the best attackers in the world, some of the best young attackers in the world. Could definitely learn from a guy like João Felix how to play down the wing. So we'll see. And, worst case scenario, he goes out on loan over the summer. The kid's only 19, so plenty of time for him to develop.
Yeah, I was realizing how young like 18 and 19 is, thinking about Lewis Hall and Carney today. And they're high schoolers, man, or just freshmen in college, and to be playing at the professional level, at the highest level, playing with Chelsea, it's kind of mind bending to me that they have showed as much poise as they have, and they've got the world out of them. So they're young, they're gonna learn, and especially like Lewis Hall, right? You see that he doesn't always make the right moves, but you see him learning, you see him taking it all in and getting good reps, and it's only going to benefit him in the future.
Well, talking about a young defender like Lewis Hall here, we saw the debut of Benoit Badiashile today for Chelsea, getting the start over a struggling Kalidou Koulibaly. Trev Chalobah also got a start, but it was out on a wing-back position, kind of out of necessity, I would say. So Badiashile beating out Koulibaly, beating out, I would say, Trev at a center back role, and beating out the young Bashir Humphreys. Badiashile's got kind of an imposing frame. He's a big boy. What do you guys make of his debut today?
Parks, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm trying not to get too excited by his debut because I liked a lot of what I saw watching him play. So I know when we saw Koulibaly play first, it was kind of the same thing. He was an enforcer. We were excited by his stature as well. We were excited by just his physicality, and we thought that was a missing piece. And so I'm trying to temper my expectations with Badiashile, but it's hard not to get excited because you can see sort of where he is better than Koulibaly. I think he's a little bit more athletic. He's willing to kind of step up and kind of run with the ball. He played forward balls, and he kind of cleaned up on defense as well. And so he seems, to do a lot of the offensive things as good, or if not better than Koulibaly. And then he's much less of a defensive liability, which is just where, Koulibaly kind of got caught out of position a lot and didn't have the speed to make up for it. So I'm excited, man. I think he's a good signing. Love to see what can kind of come about that going forward. And we talk about Silva ad nauseum on this podcast and in our group chat about how fantastic he is. But we got to start finding his replacement, because the dude's 38, and we need a solid core to lean back on, when Silva's not with us anymore. So hopefully this is the right step in the right direction.
Yeah, I would say a very strong performance from him. And the one thing I didn't think about, we were chatting about it a little bit earlier. But the one thing thinking about it now is that at one point late in the second half, Crystal Palace had all 5 or 6 of their attacking players on the pitch at once. Like, they threw everything they had. And I thought Badiashile did a very good job, especially for a debut. He's only been with the team for a week. You put him out there. Obviously, we all know the pros and cons of Koulibaly. Unfortunately, a lot of them are cons, but I thought that he played very well. I think he had one of those like sneaky good games. And the only reason why I say it is because I personally thought Trev had a better game. Only because like you saw like more of the flashy things, or more of like the dirty work as far as like blocking shots and getting in there, even if he was tracking back and then being able to block crosses and stuff like that. That's the stuff that everybody kind of sees. And I probably fell victim to that, but I thought that Trev had a better game, but it wasn't by much. Badiashile, nobody really talked about him a lot, during the commentary or anything, but that's because it seemed calm for him. The same way we talk about Thiago Silva, right? Everything seems calm. He looked very calm. He looked very composed, which is a big feat coming into a big club like this. And you've only been with the team for a week, training with them, and then, all right, go out and start. And then a team throws every single attacker they have on the pitch in the last 20 minutes. And, you're asked to do a big job. So I really think that he had a good performance today. And I'm excited to see if he can keep that up on a consistent basis. Obviously, we don't want it to be a flash in the pan or anything, but I'm hoping that this was a performance that kind of sets the tone for how he can play at a consistent level.
Now, Parker, I hear what you're saying about, we were saying the same things about Koulibaly in his first couple performances, and, trying to temper expectations. I will say that in our commentary about Koulibaly, we did note some things as positives that when you look back on, were kind of red flags, right? Taking some risks that maybe he didn't need to take, being a little too physical, things like that. I thought Benoit Badiashile did fantastic. I like to think of center backs, with the exception of Thiago Silva, kind of like how you think of offensive linemen in American football, where if you don't have to talk about them, if you don't notice that they're on the pitch, they're doing a fantastic job. Badiashile had the 3rd most touches out of anyone on the pitch today against Palace. I wouldn't have known that. I think he made maybe one mistake, one missed tackle, but he had as many tackles as Thiago Silva. He led both teams in clearances. The only thing he didn't record was an interception. But overall, I would say that's a very solid performance, and especially against a Crystal Palace team that, yes, they are struggling, but Wilfred Zaha, you got Eze, you got Olise, you have some very dangerous, I would say, Premier League attackers in that Crystal Palace squad. And he smothered them. He did great. And now if we can get him involved in the air, especially on corners where it feels like, besides today, we haven't scored off a corner in like 2 years?
No, I think since Koulibaly had that volley.
Oh, yeah.
That could have been the last one. not to bring him up, but yeah, it could have been.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Thiago Silva against AC Milan, I think, was our last headed corner goal.
Yes.
But if we can get a big boy like Badiashile involved in the box, oh man, a 6.5-year contract for a 21-year-old giant. Oh, it's going to be great. So I'm excited for him. We'll see how he does against Liverpool. I think that's going to be a completely different animal there, assuming that he plays. God, I hope he plays over Koulibaly. But yeah, I like that. I thought he paired very well with Thiago Silva.
It kind of brings us to what do we do with Koulibaly, Collins? Like, he was a big ticket signing not too long ago, and it feels like, gosh, I don't want to call it a failed experiment, but it kind of feels like it already. He's just not gonna last long term. I mean, do we cut our losses early, or do we kind of see how it pans out? I mean, the guy's not super young, so what do you think we do with him?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a failed experiment. I would say it's something that we pulled the trigger on 5 years too late. Had we signed him when he was 27, I can live with some of these mistakes. He's going to grow out of them. He's going to age and he's going to mature in the Premier League. Not at 32. I really don't see him getting much better. He might be a decent, fourth center back, depending on what you're. A center back off the bench, I guess is what I'm getting at. He might be good for 20, 30 minutes, like we saw today. We saw him for just a small stint, and he didn't look terrible. But
except for the first time he was called in the action, and he overshot the ball by 1.5 miles that exposed us. But aside from that, yeah.
Well, I mean, as a whole, he didn't look terrible. Yes, he had his moments that did look terrible. But I think Koulibaly would be a great closer, Baseball Reference drink, where he comes in and just throws gas for the closing 15 minutes of the game. I'm all for that, because honestly, I don't think that we're going to make much money back on him. If he goes anywhere, it's going to be Serie A, and none of those clubs can afford anything. So is Todd Bowley going to accept $15 million for Koulibaly? I'm not sure. So yeah, I'd say let it ride. Let him sit on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I think he still serves a purpose, right? Even if we're looking at the rest of this year, even into next year, right? Like, I'm gonna preface this. I'm not saying he's Thiago Silva, but Silva's gonna need a breather every now and again, right? He would be probably your best option to put in alongside, Trev, Fofana, or Badiashile, right? He would probably be your best option, because you need a little bit more experience than what the other three have right now. So I think he could play that role. Think of it kind of like a Dave type role with Reese. Like, yeah, he's not going to be your day in, day out, but if he needs to put in a shift, he'll be able to put in a shift and, rest Thiago Silva, give him a break, and then go from there. But you have other good parts around him that can kind of help pick up the slack where he's lacking a little bit. So yeah, I do like the option of him being a fourth. Obviously with Fofana, when he comes back, you can make the argument that maybe, well, he's the fourth, or he's ahead of Trev, or he's ahead of Badiashile, whatever. I mean, you can make all those arguments, but I think a fourth, or like the off brand of Thiago Silva, just from a leadership perspective and experience perspective, I think he would fit that role.
Parker, what do you think?
It's tough. If we can't get much money, I see your guys' point, and have him be like just a decent backup. I kind of cringe when I see him go out there, and it just I think we can get someone better or younger who can grow into a better role. So it's tough for me to want to see him get minutes when I know that there's either academy folk or other young defenders we can bring in for cheap and kind of part ways with him. I don't see him being a part of the team long term. So if we're blowing up everything else, I'd rather get someone who might be a little bit rougher on the edges but has room to grow into a different role with the team.
Well, Parker, even though you were the one who asked the question, it did come from one of our listeners. So I do want to give a quick shout out to Jordan. You can follow him on Twitter at sports_by_stats. He's really got some great breakdowns, statistical analysis on Chelsea and on some of our transfer targets. So make sure to give him a follow there. And Jordan, thank you for the question. So, boys, I want to finish with one topic here. And we've seen a lot of Kepa as of late with Mendy being out. We've seen good Kepa. We've seen bad Kepa. Today we saw good Kepa. Against Fulham, we saw bad Kepa. What is the real Kepa? Who is Kepa? Why is Kepa?
Thank you for the Marvel reference there. I appreciate that. I don't know. It's turning into one of those things like, what is Kepa? Kepa is just kind of a feeling at this point. Like, we've been singing his praises ever since he stepped in for Mendy during AFCON. It seems like he's been putting in great performances. I think I still, in my mind, think that Kepa is the better of the two keepers between him and Mendy. Kepa's more decisive. I think, he's always gotten flack, and we've always given him flack for, just have any opposing team shoot from outside the box and it'll probably go in. Well, we saw plenty of that today, and guess what? He was all over the place, making incredible saves. I think he has grown in that regard as far as shot stopping ability and things like that. Obviously, you can't teach height. Mendy's taller and stuff like that, but I do think Kepa is more athletic. I think he controls the box a lot better than Mendy does. His distribution is a lot better as well. But again, unfortunately, I will admit I was not able to watch the last 3 matches prior to today. So I don't really have a full scope on how those matches went as far as like watching them and making my own assessments. But you're going up against Man City twice. We were easily, I don't think either one of us really had a lot of confidence going into any of those matches. The Fulham one, to be fair, they were 6th going into today's match against Newcastle, so they're not a slouch of a team. And our defense has not been the most rock solid that we expected to be for most of this season. So I don't know. I think it's a bit of just a couple bad games, just a little stretch, and we saw him bounce back today in wonderful fashion. So I think Kepa is somebody that is going to have more positives than negatives. I think just even looking at this match, the saves that he made, again, were spectacular. And just seeing his ability to do all these different things, and he still controls the box, and he can just do all the little things that Mendy can't right now. So I still think Kepa is your number one. I'm not overly concerned about his last 3 matches and what might have happened and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not worried. I still think Kepa's going to be number one. So
I think Kepa is the Callum Hudson-Odoi of the goalkeeper position. I think there is no middle Kepa. There's good Kepa and there's bad Kepa. So I think back to earlier in the year, when he was starting, when before Tuchel was sacked. We lost to Zagreb. We drew against who the fuck was it? Salzburg. He was pretty poor in those. He made mistakes that cost us goals in those matches. And then he went on a good run. I think he had like 6 or 7 clean sheets in a row, or 6 out of 8, or something crazy like that. He had a great run. And then he's been kind of back down to earth for the last week or so. He's made pretty simple mistakes, like not coming out on a cross across the box, not sticking hands out when he could probably easily get a touch on balls, getting caught flat-footed. And then you saw today where it was stellar save after stellar save. Kepa doesn't have a middle ground. I don't know what it is. It's got to be something mental, because he has the skill set to be a fantastic keeper. And maybe it's just that for a keeper, he's still kind of young. He's 28. Keepers reach their prime a little later. So maybe he's still got some learning to do. But yeah, I would say he's very much like Callum Hudson-Odoi, who famously last year, when we were keeping track of man of the match and man of the get the fuck out of here, had an equal amount of points for both. He didn't really have a middle ground.
Yeah, fair point, Collins. I think I'll kind of expand on your point. It's you have great Kepa, and then you have like this weirdly indecisive Kepa, and that's like the thing that has surprised me the most about his current form, because usually we were used to him being incredibly decisive and always making his mind up early and going out and clearing his box and kind of commanding his space. So to see him be indecisive the past couple of weeks has been really weird. I think it's mental. I think it's what I could probably liken to the case of the yips a little bit, where you just kind of doubting yourself a little bit. You don't have that 100% confidence that you're going to get there or that you're going to clear it. And then you kind of get caught in no man's land. And that's where, like, I haven't really seen him be is get caught in no man's land. He's usually in the right spot. He's usually positioned perfectly. And then, if he gets beat, he gets beat, because, that's what happens in soccer. It just, you can't save them all. So it's tough to see, but I think those are definitely the exception to the rule. And I think, his bounce back is definitely noticeable, right? I think his match today was great. And when he's faced with hard shots and he doesn't have to think, you see the real Kepa. And it's just this like in between stuff right now that he's getting tested on. But I think his decisiveness will come back. I think that's a skill that we've seen in the past, and I think we'll see it going forward. It's just going to be like, he got caught out of position a couple of times. Now he's kind of doubting himself a little bit. Can he get back to making those right decisions, those right calls in the right moments, and getting back to trusting his skill set? So I think he has it. I think he's got all the tools to be great in that regard. And yeah, I still rate him as a great keeper. I still think he's a keeper that we can build on long term. I see a lot of chatter online about him needing to go, and I don't feel as strongly about that. I don't think he needs to go. I think he's still 29, has a long runway ahead of him as a goalie. And I think he brings a lot of great skills to the club that I like to see, and that, we can build behind.
So to me, it comes down to the question, would you rather have somebody that is consistently inconsistent, or somebody that is inconsistently consistent? I would take the latter.
Yeah, I mean, when Mendy comes back, I don't want him starting. I think that what he had under Tuchel was kind of a flash in the pan. He was good in France, but he wasn't anything particularly special. And he came to Chelsea and he was special. Kepa, yeah, I guess I would take him. Because I kind of know what I'm going to get out of Kepa. He's going to have some good saves, but then probably also 1 or 2 fuck ups a game. But really what I would take is Dominik Livakovic from Croatia. Spend that fuck you money.
Yeah. Honestly, straight swap. Would you do Livakovic for Mendy?
Oh yeah. 100%. No
Not
question.
even close.
I would too. I'm in agreement. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Parker,
If
what
we
about
could
you?
do a straight swap, we would.
I would do a swap plus like cash or a player or someone else that we don't want. Like I would give more. I think he's
Definitely.
much more valuable.
Give him 2 keepers for the price of 1.
As a keeper side note, Gaga Solina recently joined the club from Chicago Fire after made his long-awaited PL2 debut. Kept a clean sheet in a 2-0 win in midweek. I didn't see the match, but from what I read, made a couple pretty decent saves. And sometimes you look at these PL2 keepers and they're string beans, man. They look like they're like 15 years old, which some of them are. But just very tall, lanky. Gaga is a keeper, man. He is a big boy. And so, get him acclimated to England. And if Kepa struggles and Mendy's still injured, dude, why not? We're already in 10th. It's not going to get much worse.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, why not, right? That's what we talked about last week. If we're kind of out of Champions League, then why not throw the kids out there and see what they can do?
Get them those minutes, baby.
Yep.
All right. Well, last thing we want to cover before we wrap up here is our man of the match and man of the get the fuck out of here polls. We did not put a man of the get the fuck out of here poll for the whole week because I didn't want to ruin 3 points today and because the match against Fulham was so god awful that anyone could have won it. That being said, we did only post one man of the match poll. So we're going to talk about today's match with Crystal Palace.
Mason, right at the heart of that, man of the match. How good a Chelsea performance was it?
Yeah, I'm quite surprised I got man of the match, to be fair.
We've got Thiago Silva, Kai Havertz, Hakim Ziyech, Benoit Badiashile, and then we had 2 write-ins. We also had Kepa and Connor Gallagher. So, Matt, we'll start with you. Who are you taking?
Oof. That's a pretty good list. And hard to decipher, but I got to go with the old man himself. How many just textbook saves and challenges did he have? And it's Thiago doing Thiago things. So I have to give the nod to him.
He's the only player that consistently wows me on a week-to-week basis. I wish we had players of his caliber across the pitch because we just need people doing special things, and that's Thiago Silva, man. He does special things every single week, and I'm almost sick of talking about it, but I'm not because I love it.
We did name it the Thiago Silva Memorial Man of the Match Award, and he was my vote as well. Though, like I said earlier on the pod, I thought Badiashile did well, but he was very clearly the partner to Thiago Silva. So Silva for me, let's sweep it. And boys, in the most voted on poll in the Flag Stays Down history, Thiago Silva is your winner with 51.6% of the vote. Ziyech comes in second at 29, Badiashile in third at 14, and Kai Havertz in fourth at 5. So you can always check out our man of the match and man of the get the fuck out of here polls on Twitter after every match. Again, just search at Flag Down Pod. All right. So that pushes us past the hour mark today. Matt, Parker, any closing thoughts?
I'll just close it by saying we get to see a piece of the process and something to build forward for the future. And it's got me excited again as a fan. So it's great to see a win, great to see progress and momentum all pushing forward.
3 points is 3 points. We take them however we can get them. So good win today, hard fought. Looking forward to the, I believe it's the Liverpool match in 6 days. So it should be a banger. Looking forward to it.
And we are going to have, before we get into paying the bills here, we are going to have a series of guests coming up in the next couple episodes. If you've listened to the pod in the past, you know that our good friend Joe Mach, giant Liverpool fan, so he will be joining us next week. We've also got Hector Showtime Ortega joining us again. He was just on with us a couple episodes ago, but he will be back. And finally, leading up to the Dortmund match, we have the Badger Hopper. Ty, who is a giant Dortmund fan, has been featured on Dortmund's website as one of their international fans of the month. He'll be joining us to break down the Germans. So, boys, before we cheers to all that, let me pay some bills. And if you've enjoyed what you watched, well, and take that back. You did not watch it today. We're not on Twitch. Parker's on vacation. But please give us a follow there. We'll be there most Sundays, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Search at Flag Down Pod on Twitch. If you're busy on Sundays or if you're on vacation like Parker, or if you like to listen to the podcast, you can catch us anywhere you get your podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify, etc. All we ask is that you subscribe, rate, and review. You can always follow us on social media. The podcast itself can be found on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching at Flag Down Pod. You can find me, Andy. I'm at Comiskey North on Twitter. Parker's at DJ Parkour, and Matt is suspended. If you have any questions or comments you want us to address on air, like we had one today from Jordan, feel free to shoot us a DM, leave us a comment, etc. We're always happy to read what you got. Or again, you can come and join us live in the chat, pour yourself a drink, ask a few questions. So, boys, that's all I've got. Let's toast to the process and 3 points.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Enjoy your vacation, Parks.